Why not? Kurtuba Online Academy is the leading global online Islamic school from grade R to matric, offering South African caps and international syllabus. And it doesn't stop there. We also offer online madrasa for every grade. For more information, visit www.kurtubaonline.co.za. Kurtuba Online Academy, the leading global online Islamic school.
The SANZAF Meals Distribution Project distributes over 85,000 meals monthly. With your assistance, we would like to increase our outreach to even more individuals. Sponsor a meal for as little as 12 Rand or sign up for a debit order from 48 Rand monthly. Visit us at sanzaf.org.za or call us on 011 834 6046 for more information. SANZAF, changing lives through development and relief.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Injuran Boys College is an independent boarding and day school situated on the N1 highway in Polokwane in a picture and tranquil farm-style setting. We encourage intellectual and emotional development through a holistic learning environment. We follow the NCS CAPS curriculum and house boys from grade 5 to 11. We also have a boarding facilities. Injuran College is a safe haven and a home away from home. We focus on building morals, ethics, and grooming our boys to become responsible citizens. We offer the opportunity to be awarded 75% sponsorship of boarding fees as well as discounts. It is registered with the Department of Education and Omalusi accredited. Our other schools include girls' boarding school in Zaneni and a boys' school in Palawura. For more information, contact us on 082-491-4043 or 078-452-6264. Follow us on Facebook or email us on polokwane@injurancolleges.co.za.
For a long time, we've lived in a centralized world where institutions held the all-important data and confirmed all transactions. Those times are over. Welcome to Libertas Group, a blockchain developing company boasting an ecosystem that continually redefines the way we do business. Our blockchain is decentralized, making it immune to hacking or alteration, putting the power back in your hands with no middleman so you can focus on the growth of your business. Libertas, the simplest investment choice you'll make.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al-Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al-Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities, conveniently situated at Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities. Your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al-Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041-583-6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. We welcome our friends in South Africa, the United States, and around the world to this week's edition of A Conversation with El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan. I'm pleased to be your host, coming to you once again through the Salam Media platform out of Johannesburg, South Africa. Salam Media is an online portal for humanitarian journalism. We don't just report the news, we advise you on what you can do about it. Brothers and sisters, friends, we have a different kind of program scheduled for you today. It's a slightly different format. We're not going to take as much time as we normally do with an hour-long broadcast because we are on the road. And I apologize for any technical difficulties that being on the road, coming to you from a hotel room in Texas, poses for our engineer, Brother Sadiq. But we're literally on the road. I'm coming to you from a hotel room in the Irving, Texas area. We're here in Texas in preparation for the mobilization, an extremely important mobilization scheduled for our sister in Islam, Dr. Afia Siddiqui, 1 week from today in Fort Worth, Texas. Just about a half-hour drive from where I am now located. I wanted to use today's broadcast to really emphasize how important this upcoming mobilization is. It's been about a year since we were last here in Texas. We had a rally 1 year ago outside of FMC Carswell in Fort Worth, the military reserve base where our sister is being held, where she is imprisoned. And that was a successful mobilization. We had somewhere between 300 and 400 folk who had turned out to express their support and their concern for Dr. Afia Siddiqui outside the gates, right in the vicinity of the institution known as FMC Carswell. So if there were inmates looking through their windows, they could have seen us. We do know that quite a number of FMC personnel were aware of our presence. They monitored the activities from start to finish, and we expect the same will happen a week from today. We're hoping that next Sunday's mobilization will be even bigger than last year's was. And we need it to be bigger because of what happened in the wake of that mobilization. In fact, it was part of a 5-city mobilization that took place last year. The first mobilization was in Houston, Texas. This is the city where our sister Afia Siddiqui first entered the United States at. She spent her first year in Houston as a student at the University of Houston and residing with her blood brother Muhammad Siddiqui and his family, and winning a full scholarship to MIT. The following year, she transferred to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where again she graduated with honors and went from there to Brandeis University, where she graduated again with honors with a PhD in cognitive neuroscience. Most of her years were spent in the Boston, Massachusetts area. And she distinguished herself as an academic, and she also distinguished herself as a humanitarian, as a da'i, someone who was passionate about spreading the message of Islam, but also during the Bosnian crisis as a humanitarian relief worker. Extraordinary sister. And because of this extraordinary work that Afia Siddiqui did, she came up on the radar of the authorities post 9/11, simply because she had been a very active Muslim woman. We all know the story. Ultimately, she returned home in 2002, and within a matter of months, she and her children were kidnapped. and she became a secretly held prisoner in America's so-called war on terrorism from 2003, March of 2003, when she was kidnapped, until the summer of 2008, when she was mysteriously released and set up in Afghanistan to be killed. We do know that one of the institutions, one of the prisons where Afia was held was Bagram, the quote unquote detention center that was administered, probably built and administered by the US government. She was the only female prisoner known to be held there. For a total of 5 years, Afia Siddiqui was a secretly held prisoner. And then in the summer of 2008, a scenario was set up where she then became a fall guy in an effort to take her life and not succeeding, severely injuring her, and then having to come up with a story as to how and why she was severely injured. She was brought back to the United States in violation of international law, in violation of Afghan sovereignty. She was on a sovereign nation's territory. She was their prisoner. She should not have been released or removed without their permission. And so the U.S., exercising its arrogance of power, did what it does. It just, took the international law into its own hands and twisted it and brought her back to the United States, rehabilitated her just enough to put her on trial, what amounted to a kangaroo farce of a trial, blocks away from ground zero, in an atmosphere where she had been demonized for a year and a half leading up to the trial throughout the media as Al-Qaeda mom and, these other ugly epithets that they threw at her, that they described her through. And, Afia Siddiqui didn't stand a snowball's chance in hell of getting a fair trial, and she didn't get one. She was found guilty. A Zionist judge by the name of Richard Berman applied terrorism enhancements, even though it wasn't a terrorism case, and gave her a sentence of 86 years. She is now 19 and a half, a little more than 19 and a half years into a 86-year sentence. And we are here to say, not in our name. We will not be silent and allow this kind of travesty to occur. Before I share more of my own thoughts, I want to share once again, won't be the first time, a very thought-provoking video clip of a highly respected British journalist by the name of Victoria Brittain. Let's show that video clip of Victoria Brittain outside of a New York courthouse in 2010, around the time when Afia Siddiqui was on trial. What she has to say.
Well, I think what it's important to know about this is a very complex case, and it's been made confusing, but it isn't actually confusing. And I think the way to look at it is in its 3 bits. The first bit was the kidnapping of Afia. Now, originally, the Pakistanis and the Americans just said she disappeared and said that they didn't have her. There's now been evidence on tape from the Pakistani police official who was in charge of arresting her and the 3 children and disappearing her. So it's not confusing. She didn't disappear for 5 years. She was disappeared. The second thing is when she reappeared in Afghanistan, in Ghazni, that was extremely peculiar and nobody understood where she'd come from or why she should be there. But I think it's quite clear that the so-called evidence that she had in her handbag that was supposed to prove her to be a terrorist was completely laughable. But the most important thing is that when she was in the police station in Ghazni, where there were some FBI agents and some American soldiers, and she is alleged to have picked up a gun and shot at them. In fact, the forensic evidence that her defense lawyers produced after 2 very, very exhaustive visits to Afghanistan showed that there was no fingerprint of hers on the gun, there was no DNA of hers, and there was no bullet hole that came from that particular gun. So I think we can see that that was a scene that was set. The third bit was when she was brought back to America. And why was she brought back to America? She's a Pakistani citizen. She should have, if anything, been taken to Pakistan. Anyway, she was brought back to America in a wheelchair with these 2 shots to the stomach. And in her trial, in the course of the trial, the only evidence against her, there was no forensic, so the only evidence against her came from the soldiers who were present. And according to not one, but several lawyers I've spoken to, those soldiers in the courtroom contradicted each other, but also contradicted the initial statements that they'd made about who stood where and who was there and when she did this and where she was exactly. So I think it's a tragic thing for American justice that the jury found her guilty. But in the climate of New York, post 9/11, somebody whose reputation had been completely trashed deliberately by the people who leaked stories that she was a gun runner or a money launderer for Al-Qaeda, that she was married into a big Al-Qaeda family. All these things were lies, but they were put out into the media. And so not surprisingly, in America, people who didn't know any of the details had an image of her, and it was that false image which allowed her to be convicted. As for getting 86 years, outrageous is the only possible word for this sentence.
Yes, indeed. I couldn't have said it better. I mean, Victoria Brittain, she hit the nail on the head with her description of this sordid case. Again, this was from 2010, at the time when the trial was had already come to an end. In New York City, Afia was given an 86-year sentence. Outrageous. Yes, indeed it was. We have another clip I want you to see. Now, this clip, also from a non-Muslim woman, is the clip of a senior citizen who was impacted by one of the 5 city mobilizations that took place last year. I'm not sure which mobilization it was that this compassionate woman was exposed to, but whichever one it was, it deeply impacted her. And she made a very determined declaration from her heart and mind, from her own conscience, of things, that she could do, that she wanted to do in order to assist Afia Siddiqui in whatever way she possibly could, in order to assist this campaign for Afia's freedom in whatever way she could. And this type of spirit that emanates from the compassionate heart of a total stranger, someone who just heard the details of this sordid story and was moved to want to do something about it. Why? Because this was being done in the United States of America to an innocent person in her name. Listen to what this compassionate senior citizen had to say.
It seems to me that the 86 years that she was given are very suspicious. That's a life sentence, you want to get rid of that person so they're never able to tell what they actually know. So I think that comes from fears of the wrongdoing that has been a part of her case this whole time. What I can do here in my place is to share her story and to use social media, as was suggested, to alert other people to her name and her situation, and to demand. I mean, if our government says liberty and justice for all, then we need to pursue that justice for all, not just for some. I think it's very important. Somebody mentioned unity. I think unity in messaging on her case will be very important. And I would ask you if it is possible to print out the testimonies of the people that were in this rally. I didn't get to hear all of them, and I would certainly like to hear them and read them again so that I can refer to them when I do social messaging. If there's anybody that I have ever heard about who deserves clemency and release, it is Dr. Siddiqui. So I just want to say thank you to all of you who are working so hard to bring justice to her and to open up this information to the public. I agree, we are not free until everybody is free. So thank you very much for your work. I will try to do what I can from here.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless the compassionate heart of that senior. Again, I don't know what city she was in, which one of the 5 city mobilizations she caught last year. If I had to take a guess, I would say probably Texas, but I'm not sure. But bless her for that response. And this is the type of response that we all should have, whatever we can do. And so we're here again, a year later. And this mobilization is very important. In fact, it's a few notches ahead in terms of importance. Why? Because of what happened in the wake of last year's mobilization, when an unbalanced individual traveled from the UK to the United States, assisted along the way by forces unknown, arriving in New York, spending a couple of days in a homeless shelter, then traveling by bus to Texas. And, while being up on the authorities' radar in the UK, from what I understand from the background information I read about him, he was on the radar in the UK as someone who authorities were concerned about. Still, he was able to get a visa to the United States, travel here under those circumstances, and do what he did at a synagogue in Colleyville. He ended up losing his life. There was a big explosion of coverage, and within that coverage, disinformation. Afia's blood brother was accused of being the individual who had done this, and they had to go back and correct themselves, although no doubt there are still many people under the impression it was Afia's blood brother. And there was all kinds of other slanderous disinformation reports that came out one after another, week after week after week. They used that as an opportunity to attack Afia Siddiqui once again and to try to justify her being where she is. There were some religious activists, leaders and activists who held a special program at a Colleyville church, and we were hoping that someone would have had the intestinal fortitude to raise the issue of Afia Siddiqui there, given the fact that she was the reason for it. She was in the background of that gathering that took place over I think it was a 2-day, maybe 3-day weekend. And, but nothing was done. Nothing was done. I mean, our brothers and sisters went back into a shell. This is what the enemy likes for us to do when they attack, when they hit us, when they hurt us, to drive us into the shadows of not wanting to be seen or heard. And this is counterproductive to what should happen when we are attacked, when our loved ones are unjustifiably attacked. We must respond with the same fervor without exceeding the limits that they do. So that didn't happen, but here we are a year later. 1 week from today, we are going to be back at FMC Carswell, and our brothers and sisters, especially those who reside in Texas, are in a unique position to be able to send a strong message, another strong message on behalf of our sister Afia, and if we understand the issues correctly as we should, a statement on behalf of ourselves. I have said, and I'm winding down now with my presentation for today. And like I said, I wanted to keep this short, and I'm hoping that you will share this as far and wide as you possibly can. But I have said a number of times over the past 2 years that we are in a period in the United States of America that is very opportune. It's an opportune moment for us to shed the kind of light and to create the kind of positive pressure that can result in relief for so many of our brothers and sisters who are wrongfully imprisoned. The atmosphere is ideal. There are so many things that have taken place over the past 2 years that underscore the fact that we are in a very unique moment for relief. But we have to do what they used to say back in the 1960s, seize the time. We have to seize this moment. One example, I should say another example, there are many, but another recent example of this opportune moment that we're in is the release, or was the release of a young Pakistani American brother, 41 years of age now, by the name of Adnan Syed. Adnan Syed was released from imprisonment. 23 years of wrongful imprisonment he spent. He was 17 years old when the nightmare began. 17 years old when he was accused of murdering his former girlfriend. 17 years old in Baltimore, Maryland. He was released after 23 years, just about 3 weeks ago. And as I expected would be the case, because when he was released, when the conviction was vacated, it was vacated with the understanding that he would be under house arrest for 30 days max. And during that 30-day period, the prosecutor's office in Baltimore would determine whether or not he would face a new trial. I predicted that there would not be a new trial. And there wasn't. Well before the 30-day period was over, the district attorney announced he's free and clear. His 23 years was a wrongful imprisonment, and so he has been totally cleared with a formal apology. Hopefully some reparations will come down the line, some type of compensation for the role that police and prosecutorial misconduct played in his imprisonment. But It's another example of this moment that we're in. Afia Siddiqui has been wrongfully imprisoned now for almost 20 years. She deserves to have her conviction vacated. And she should be awarded compensation. I mean, she could never receive full compensation for what has happened to her. The loss of a child, her youngest child, the baby, whose life ended on that fateful night when she and her 2 older children were kidnapped. The wrongful imprisonment of her young children for 5 and 6.5 years in separate places. Ahmed was held in one place, Miriam was held in another place. And when Miriam was returned to the family home, she could only speak English with an American accent, and that is an indication of who held her for all those years. And then Afia herself, still imprisoned. You can't compensate Afia Siddiqui and the Siddiqui family. Her mother recently passed away without being able to be reunited with her daughter again. You can't compensate them for what they've been through, but you can make an effort to right the wrong. But brothers and sisters, wrong will not be righted until we do what we're supposed to do. This is not just a test for Afia Siddiqui and her family and for the frontline supporters of hers in Pakistan. It is a test for us all. Are we willing to measure up to the test? That is the question. So here we are. At the end of this short presentation, we just want to say again that a week from today, next Sunday, October 23rd, we will be holding a protest rally, a support rally for Dr. Afia Siddiqui outside the gates of FMC Carswell. We need maximum support for this. We were supposed to spend, initially, we were planning to spend the first 3 days in Houston, Texas. But our Muslim brethren, leaders over that large umbrella organization, what is it, ISGH, I believe it's known as, it's just taking too long to respond. While we were en route to Houston, we were almost there, just about maybe 3 hours away, and we still didn't get a positive response for where we would be able to address our brothers and sisters and raise the flag of around this cause. And so we decided we have no time to waste. We redirected our pathway from Houston to Dallas-Fort Worth. This is where we are now. And we have visited already 3 centers over the past 2 days. We've visited 3 centers, connecting with the leaders of those centers and wanting to lay the groundwork for presentations that will follow in the coming days. In fact, our first presentation that is scheduled will be in Arlington, Texas, tomorrow evening at Darul Iman, inshallah ta'ala. Tomorrow evening, after Salatul Isha. We paid a visit to the Islamic Center of Irving. We're waiting to hear back from them, one of the largest centers in this part of the country. We're going to be visiting other centers in this metro area, in Plano, in Dallas, and we're hoping that the leaders of these centers will positively respond. And in fact, what we're planning to do is we're going to keep a report card. We're going to report at the end of this mobilization effort where we went, who we contacted, who we connected with, and what their response was. And then, you can determine who are the relevant leaders and organizations based upon this report that we issue on how the response went during this mobilization effort. But whether leaders respond as they should respond or not, we're going to do as much as we possibly can to get to as many common folk, common Muslims, everyday Muslims, rank and file brothers and sisters as we possibly can. You are very, very important. You are very special. You are needed for this mobilization, and we need you to do what you can to help us spread the word. Again, next week, inshallah ta'ala, our brother Sheikh, Dr. Omar Suleiman is already committed to being with us next Sunday. We also have the commitment of Imam Abdullah Farouk. Imam Abdullah Farouk is an African-American imam out of Boston. He knew Afia Siddiqui and her family personally. He and his wife, they had close ties to Afia. The books and pamphlets and other materials that Afia Siddiqui used in her dawah program throughout Boston were stored in the masjid that Imam Abdullah Farouk has presided over as the resident imam for many years. Masjid Alhamdulillah, the masjid for the praising of Allah, based in Roxbury. He's one of the most senior imams in that greater Boston metro area. And again, he and his wife, they both knew Afia personally. So inshallah ta'ala, we're going to hear from them too. And then, inshallah ta'ala, whatever other leaders and activists in the DFW area want their voices heard in defense of their sister, we will hear from them as well. So with that said, I want to end the program now with a special invitation once again for you to share this as far and wide as you possibly can, and mark your calendars. Mark your calendars. Plan to be with us at 4 o'clock at FMC Carswell. Brother, if you have the poster, the flyer, if you can show that, inshallah ta'ala. And if there's anyone that would like for us to send them an electronic copy of the flyer, just let us know, and inshallah ta'ala, we will do that. We'll be happy to do that. So with that being said, I want to conclude today's broadcast as we normally do with Surah Al-Asr. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal Asr. Innal insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawassaw bil haqq wa tawassaw bis sabr. Which means, the translation of the meaning, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, by the token of time through the ages, surely humanity is in loss, except those who believe and do good, and exhort one another to truth, and exhort one another to patiently persevere. Help us spread the word. Next Sunday, October 23rd, 4 to 6 p.m., FMC Carswell in Fort Worth, Texas. Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum.